They came for entertainment, not justice. Beneath the roar of the crowd and the golden sun of Rome, humanity died 1,000 deaths. For in the heart of the Colosseum, glory was not for the brave but for the cruel. The Colosseum stood like a god of stone, vast, terrible, eternal. Its arches gleamed in the morning light, its sands stained by centuries of blood. When the horns blared and the iron gates groaned open, 50,000 Romans rose as one. Senators, slaves, merchants, and matrons, all united by the same savage hunger, to see men and beasts die for their pleasure. It was said that Rome was built on discipline and law, but in truth it survived on spectacle. The emperors knew this well. Bread fed the body, but blood fed the soul of the empire. On this day the crowd was promised something new, something never before seen. Emperor Commodus himself would appear in the arena, not as a ruler but as a god of war. The people whispered of his madness, his obsession with proving divinity through death. Some said he had ordered criminals to be dressed as Hercules' enemies so that he might slay them one by one. Others whispered darker things, that he no longer saw any difference between beast and man. Behind the heavy iron gates, Marcus stood with his hands bound. Once a soldier of the legions, now a condemned man. His crime was defiance. He had spoken against the emperor's cruelty. For that his sentence was not simple death but spectacle. He would fight unarmed against the monsters of Rome. He could hear them outside, the drums, the cheers, the thunder of feet. The smell of sweat and sand and iron filled his lungs. Next to him, other prisoners trembled. Thieves, rebels, and innocents alike, all about to be fed to glory. The guard, a scarred veteran, muttered as he tightened Marcus's chains. "You were a good soldier. Die fast if you can. It's better that way." The gates began to rise and sunlight poured in like fire. Marcus stepped forward, blinded for a moment, and the noise hit him. A wave of madness. The arena stretched before him, ringed with marble and gold. Above, the emperor sat beneath a canopy of silk, his chest bare, his face painted in the likeness of a god. Around him lounged senators and noblewomen, fanning themselves as they awaited the slaughter. A trumpet blared. From the far side of the arena, a wooden cage was dragged out. The crowd roared as it opened, and from within came a bull the size of a chariot, its horns tipped with bronze, its eyes burning red from the torches. But this was no ordinary beast. Its mouth had been filled with oil-soaked cloth and set aflame. It bellowed, a scream that was half pain, half fury. The guards prodded it forward with spears, and the creature charged. Marcus dodged aside as the beast crashed into the sand, flames spitting from its mouth. The crowd gasped, then laughed. This was their entertainment, men dying in creative ways. He grabbed a broken spear from the ground, a weapon left from the previous fight, and when the bull lunged again, he drove the jagged point into its throat. Blood sprayed across his face. The crowd erupted, chanting his name, not from respect but from excitement. He was a moment's amusement, nothing more. When the beast finally fell, the trumpet sounded again. Another gate opened. This time lions, 3 of them, lean and starving. They padded across the sand, tails twitching, eyes fixed on him. The scent of blood drove them mad. Marcus lifted his broken spear, knowing it would not be enough. But before the lions reached him, another figure entered, a woman, chained, her gown torn, her face streaked with tears. The crowd roared louder. The announcer's voice echoed, "Behold, the priestess of Isis condemned for witchcraft and treason against Rome." Marcus's heart sank. He had seen her once before, Livia, a healer who had treated wounded soldiers after the plague. She had saved dozens, maybe hundreds. Now she would die as an amusement. The lions circled closer. The priestess cried out, "Mercy, Emperor!" Commodus rose from his throne. "Mercy?" he shouted, his voice echoing across the amphitheater. "Let the gods decide." He raised his hand and the lions leapt. Marcus lunged between them, swinging the spear wildly. He caught one across the jaw, another across the eye. The beast snarled, claws slashing. One tore into his shoulder, teeth sinking deep, but he did not stop. He drove the spear upward, straight into its chest. The crowd screamed. Blood splattered the marble seats. The emperor laughed, a high, delighted sound that chilled the soul. When the final lion fell, Marcus collapsed, gasping. The priestess crawled to him, whispering prayers. Around them, the arena was silent for a moment, stunned, almost reverent. Then Commodus rose again. "A fine show," he said, smiling. "But Rome demands more." He gestured to his guards. "Bring out the slaves." The gates opened once more, and a procession of trembling men and women was led in, hundreds of them chained together. Each bore a mask shaped like an animal: wolf, jackal, crow. The crowd began to chant, "The hunt! The hunt!" Archers appeared along the arena walls, bows ready. The slaves were released into the sand like prey, and so began one of the most brutal spectacles in Roman history: the hunt of beasts and men. The gates slammed shut behind them, and the arena became a vast cage of terror. Men and women scattered in every direction, tripping over chains, crying out for mercy. The archers drew their bows. On the emperor's signal, the first volley was loosed. Arrows rained from the sky, hissing like serpents. A dozen slaves fell instantly, their screams swallowed by the roar of the crowd. Those who remained ran toward the far walls where nets were waiting, nets laced with iron hooks. Marcus staggered to his feet, blood streaming down his arm. He looked at the priestess beside him, her eyes wide with horror. "Stay low," he whispered. "Move when they reload." They darted behind a fallen chariot. The sand was soaked in blood, the air thick with smoke from the burning torches. From above, Commodus laughed, drinking from a golden cup. To him this was art, the theater of pain. He rose from his throne and addressed the crowd. "People of Rome, you have seen beasts, you have seen traitors, but now you shall see the gods descend." The crowd erupted in frenzy. Trumpets blared. From beneath the arena came a deep rumbling, gears and chains turning. A trapdoor split open in the center of the Colosseum, and from the depths rose a massive wooden stage decorated like Mount Olympus. On it stood men dressed as gods: Jupiter, Mars, Neptune, and in the center, Commodus himself, wearing a lion's skin and wielding a golden sword. He stood above them all, the self-proclaimed living Hercules. The announcer shouted, "Behold the Emperor! Slayer of beasts, conqueror of men, God among mortals." Commodus raised his sword toward the slaves below. "Let this day prove that even the gods may kill." The stage began to move forward. Attached to it were ropes, and at the other ends of those ropes were slaves. As the platform advanced, the ropes tightened, dragging the condemned across the sand. Their cries mingled with the cheers. It was not war. It was theater, a parody of divine power. Marcus clenched his fists. Every scream, every cruel laugh, every drop of blood echoed through his mind. He had fought for Rome once, for its ideals, its discipline, its glory. Now he saw what it had become, a civilization addicted to death. The priestess whispered, "There is no God in this place." "Then we'll make one," Marcus said grimly. "A God of justice." When the archers turned their attention toward another group, he sprinted across the sand. The priestess followed. They reached the shadow of the stage, climbing onto one of the mechanisms that raised it. Above them, Commodus basked in the adoration of the mob. He didn't notice the two figures rising behind him. Marcus pulled himself up onto the wooden platform, grabbing a fallen sword from one of the costumed gods. The priestess climbed after him, whispering prayers under her breath. Commodus turned, uttered, and for the first time his smile faltered. "You?" he sneered. "The soldier who defied me? I should have let the lions finish their work." Marcus raised the sword. "They failed. Now it's your turn." The crowd gasped as the two men faced each other under the blazing sun. The drums stopped. The city of Rome itself seemed to hold its breath. Commodus swung his golden blade, fast and furious, but his strikes were wild. Showmanship, not skill. Marcus parried, each clash ringing like thunder. The priestess stood aside, watching as blood and sand flew through the air. The emperor lunged, but Marcus sidestepped and drove his shoulder into him. Commodus stumbled backward, crashing against a statue of Jupiter. The crowd shouted, some in outrage, some in awe. "You think killing me will save them?" Commodus roared. "Without me, Rome is nothing." Marcus's voice was calm, steady. "Then Rome deserves nothing." He drove his sword through the emperor's chest. The golden blade fell from Commodus's hand. The self-proclaimed god gasped, blood spilling down his robes. For a heartbeat, the arena was silent. Then the people rose, 50,000 voices crying out, not in mourning but confusion. They had never seen their god bleed. Marcus turned to face them, his sword dripping red. "Is this your god?" he shouted. "This butcher who made you cheer for death? You call it glory, mime, but it is madness. Rome has forgotten what honor means." The crowd hesitated. The illusion cracked. Soldiers rushed into the arena, weapons drawn. Marcus knew he would not live to see another sunrise. But he had shown them, if only for a moment, that even emperors could die like men. The priestess stepped beside him. "What happens now?" He looked to the heavens where vultures circled above the Colosseum. "Now," he said quietly, "Rome must decide what it wants to be, empire or graveyard." The soldiers closed in. The priestess took his hand. Together they faced the oncoming blades. When it was over, the sands were crimson once more. The bodies of Marcus and the priestess lay beneath the shadow of the fallen emperor, conqueror and condemned alike, equal at last. Days later, the Senate declared Commodus a tyrant and erased his name from every monument. His statues were torn down, his likeness destroyed. But the Colosseum remained and the games continued, for the people of Rome could not unlearn their hunger. And so the arena lived on, a monument to cruelty disguised as glory, where every scream was drowned by applause. The empire would fall in time, its marble shattered, its legions gone to dust, but the memory of its spectacles would echo through history, a reminder that even the mightiest civilization can lose its soul when it mistakes blood for beauty.